What have we got for you today? Well, the Mirror has splashed on a picture of a grinning buffoon landing at Brisbane Airport to take part in this year's I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, in which the publisher of his new book and the ITV producers have played an absolute blinder and got everyone talking about someone we were all trying very hard to forget about. That's right, former Health Secretary Matt Hancock, who last time I checked, about 5 minutes ago, was in fact a public servant and not a celebrity, is going into the jungle allegedly to reconnect with the voters, but as a result has been disconnected from the Tories, who have withdrawn the whip and left him in disgrace. Now, here is a clip of him being so extremely unpopular with them, it may have spurred him on to seek some further public approval. Roll tape. There we go. Completely snubbed by the new Prime Minister. Is plainly got his nose a little bit out of joint there. Now, Darren, this is exactly what happened with Nadine Dorries when she went into the jungle about a decade ago. She lost the whip too on her way in. And when she should have been at work, and she wound up in government after that and is now nominated for the House of Lords. So Matt Hancock would probably be expecting to lose the whip, and it wouldn't expect it to harm his employment prospects at all, would he?
No, it wouldn't. And I think it kind of symptomizes the degree of arrogance that has always surrounded the Tories, in so much as they believe they will always land on their feet. And Hancock is taking, I don't even think this is a calculated risk for him, because I think he's clearly in the departure lounge of his career. And I think as far as he's concerned, he doesn't, I think we've articulated.
He's far too close to that lady. Sorry.
Yeah, Wendy Maisie. I think Wendy handled that particularly well, actually, because I think, again, that is what Matt Hancock's all about. No self-awareness, no real ability to kind of read the room.
And she had to just move away from him in the end when she realised, no.
It was a very viral clip. I mean, I can't put myself in her position. You probably can, Susie. And
every woman has been in this position when you wave your hand to somebody and you find it inexplicably you've just hit his crotch because he's so close to you, which is what just happened to her. And then so she's trying to carry on and be polite, but it's just sort of gradually moving away. Anyway, I'm going to take a step away now, Mr. Hancock.
And you have
no sense of personal space.
I almost wonder if this clip as well sums Matt Hancock up in a nutshell. I mean, he's quite unfortunately named in the first place, but I think as far as he's concerned, he just lacks that awareness and the inability to read the room and to kind of understand the way that he's being perceived. And that headline right there, I wrote a column about him today. I felt that he does represent everything that is wrong with our politics right now. And, maybe it's on us. Maybe we get the politicians that, our society produces, but there's almost a despair about his failure to understand that there have been so many bereaved families, not just the ones that have suffered loss, but, the ones who've had their lives affected, your life, my life, the lives of the people watching this show. And yet we have this guy who thinks after all that he can go into the jungle. And I know Lembit Opik went in, and I know Nadine, as you were saying, went in as well. But that was 10 years ago. They were very different circumstances, and none of them presided over one of the worst COVID death tolls in the world. No. Matt Hancock did. And as you saw in the picture, I don't know if you can flash it up again, he quite literally, I said this in the piece, he quite literally slept on his watch with his mistress.
Can we stop looking at that picture? Because it traumatizes me every time again, but I have to see it. It's a great headline, Darren, but I don't want to see that image. And I have the horrible feeling that when he's in the jungle, no, stop it, Edward, backstage, no.
I mean, unfortunately, you can't unsee it.
We're going to have that video played at us, aren't we? Over and over again now. Now, as Mike says, I hope every contestant asks Hancock repeatedly, why aren't you at home doing the job you're paid for, before silently watching him wander off to eat more animal private parts? Now, you've raised the point about a couple of other politicians who went in, Limber Opic and Nadine Dorries, but of course they were backbenchers at the time. Matt Hancock is a backbencher now. They should all have been representing their constituents and were taking, I don't know if they all actually took it in the end, but were being paid ostensibly by the taxpayer at the time. But none of them were former cabinet ministers, like you said. None of them were reviled in the public consciousness for the same reasons that Matt Hancock is, perhaps. Jill says, let's hope the public vote for him to do all the trials. He's a disgrace. He should be sacked. But again, it's taking the heat off the present crisis. And they've got a point here, haven't they, I think, Darren? Because unlike when Dorries went in, she just annoyed her voters and her constituency, and they forgot about it in time for the next election. But Mr. Spatchcocked here has also upset the COVID families who blame him for the loss of many thousands of loved ones unnecessarily and prematurely during the pandemic. They say the PPE failures, the contracts for mates, the discharge of people into care homes without testing them for COVID all caused extra deaths and waste of public money. This is someone who would unite anti-vaxxers and COVID families in loathing, pretty much. But one person who might be a bit less than thrilled, according to the Mirror at least, is the new campmate, is newsreader Charlene White, who's in the jungle. And she's spoken out before on Loose Women about how devastating her family found it when they had to have a socially distanced funeral for her great aunt while the Tory leadership were partying in Downing Street. Now, that is a slightly separate issue to what Matt Hancock did wrong in office. He was present at one of those Downing Street parties, but he wasn't linked to the partying that she was so upset about. But Darren, you've been speaking to some of Charlene's family, and they are perhaps trying to be a little bit more positive about it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they'll handle it with the class they normally deal with this kind of situation. But I do hope that inside the camp, Hancock feels the isolation that the families felt. Not just Charlene's, but many others felt during that period. I think the Queen is a perfect example, the late Queen, who had to be isolated at Prince Philip's funeral. And there'll be thousands, millions of ordinary people who will have felt isolated in their deep, darkest moment. And this is why, Susie, I feel, yes, people might say, I hope he does all of the worst trials, and he does, eats kangaroos, this and that. For me, I don't think, and I say this in the piece, any amount of humour generated from the hours that he's on the show can compensate for the grief and the loss that families are feeling. I don't care if he gets his head stuck in a box full of spiders, or if he has to jump off a cliff without a heart, whatever. The fact is that we all have to ask ourselves, is this appropriate for the national broadcaster to be, to get this guy who wrecked the lives of so many people? And you might say, well, I didn't do it deliberately, and that's fine. And I could take that. It may well be that it's just his incompetence that managed to do it. But to thrust him into center stage and say, okay, that's now done. Now let's have a laugh at Anton Deck. I don't think families are having it. And there may be people who are willing to speak up on his behalf, but from my point of view, and I wouldn't imagine the COVID families issued a statement yesterday calling for him to be removed from the show. A show, let's not forget, that he will cash in on while he's drawing his MP salary. He says he's giving
some of the money to some good causes. I think a hospice in his constituency and some dyslexia work. I don't think he's specified how much.
And not again, he should be. Personally, and this is only my personal opinion, I can't speak for the many people. I'm sure they'll speak for themselves when they come on and they message in. I don't think he should be on there. I think it is a misstep. I think as far as the show is concerned, there are lots of people they could get on there who would provide us the humour that we wouldn't have mixed feelings about or utter contempt for. He's not a pantomime villain. He's a guy who wrecked lives of lots and lots of people. And as you put it so well into context, he profited from it. He had his extracurricular activities around it. This is a guy whose mendacity has affected the lives of a lot of people, and I don't think you can turn that into entertainment.
Well, we'll have to see, won't we, what Ant and Dec can manage. I'm sure we'll have lots of shots of that video. I'm sure there'll be tasks involving social distancing or masking up. And perhaps...
Do you agree? Do you agree? Do you agree, Susie? Where do you stand on this?
Well, I pretty much agree with you. I think it maybe is a slight misstep. We'll have to see, though. I mean, Debbie Ann says here, he didn't make the virus. Leave the man alone, stopping this bullying. When did it become acceptable to pick on people and single them out? To be fair, Debbie's got a point that, it wasn't a government that did lots of these things and a department, and Matt Hancock would have been acting on advice from his advisors. But, Debbie Ann, he did also single himself out by going into the jungle, by saying, I'm a celebrity, get me in there. So there is, and this ritual humiliation, which is going to be going on, that he is going to be voted to do all the tasks. That just is. It's going to be like when Katie Price went on, just get all the tasks done. That is bullying. That is a nation saying we don't like you. But Jill says there, he should be answerable for his actions. So I think there's this ethical debate. Is this someone we ought to be bullying? Is that part of the process of being a society that we do round on people who've done the wrong thing in some respect?
Can I say, I mean, he says, because he's done as you would expect, he's done the interviews but sees this as a jolly thing, and he's beaming from ear to ear, saying he's going in there to connect to people and show the human side. Well, I think one or two people would have liked to have seen that humanity during the crisis. They would have liked him to be more transparent during the crisis. They would have liked him to have helped with the PPE they were crying out during the crisis. There are so many other things he could have done to show a more human side, not to politicians, to him during that crisis. And I think that monetizing the misery of millions of people and releasing a book where he decides he wants to open up, as opposed to showing the accountability that ministers of state should have, I think it sends out the wrong message. And, I said in the piece, it's symptomatic of this total moronification of public life, where you think about the amount of prime ministers we've had. Everyone wants to go at being Home Secretary. Everyone wants to go at being Chancellor. Nobody knows their brief. It's years ago, politicians had some degree of honor and some degree of gravity when they assumed the roles of Minister of State. Mm-hmm. And right now, we've got guys who waltz in, have a go. When they finish, they get paid and they waltz off into the sunset, while ordinary people are left paying for bills through the roof, crying over lost loved ones and suffering the kind of carnage in their daily lives that politicians, ministers couldn't care less about.
Yeah, well, it's worth bearing in mind that Matt Hancock's experience of normal life was working as a Bank of England economist briefly before he joined the Conservative Party policy unit and came up through the ranks and then got picked for a safe seat. So how much normal human beings in there, we'll have to wait and see, I suppose. Joe says, this man's being paid to do a job for his constituents. He should be sacked. He can be recalled if there's enough people in his constituency that want him to. The Mirror has spoken to some of those constituents in the paper today, and not a single one of them is chuffed about the idea. I think even his constituency association chairman is pretty unhappy. So we'll have to see how some of that goes. Now, keep asking us your questions. Do you think there's any benefit whatsoever to Matt Hancock or the world at large for him going into the I'm a Celebrity jungle? It is possible, if not very probable, that the public will take him to their hearts and see a nicer side of him, see the human side. But it's more likely Ant and Dec will take the mickey out of him on primetime telly every night for a fortnight, and we'll watch him being richly humiliated, dancing with his not wife again. You prepare yourselves for all of that. But Darren, there is this, I think this is where I stand on this. There's a serious point here, because while all this is going on, light is being made of it. It comes down to talk about kangaroo testicles and, how funny Ant and Dec can make a joke at his expense. He's being mocked. And that really reduces the fury of those families the country at large. It reduces the wrong that he did when he was in office. And you write in your column that you think ITV has misstepped here. Because, I mean, they're supposed to get controversial figures on and have people wanting to watch the television. But do you think it'll backfire? Is this a bit too far?
I think it could well. I know, and this is a slight move away, but I know you know all about dealing with families who are bereaved. I know you work with the vets, the nuclear vets, and the fights that they've had to go through to get justice and accountability, etc. The fine work it is too. And, I think of the families of those who've been bereaved, and those who have suffered avoidable deaths. And my thoughts are with what they will be thinking every night while other people are giggling over the kind of frivolity that some of the others in that campsite will put themselves up for and be involved in. But this guy, who should be accountable to the public, to his constituencies, to the nation, to his constituency, to the nation, I just can't see that they would be smiling every day, knowing that this guy is having fun at their expense. And I do see it as having fun at their expense. I do see it as him basically laughing at them. I want to use a stronger term, but we're a family show. But I do see it, ITV, as having made a real misstep here, because I don't see that as fun, humour, jollity, entertainment. I just don't see it. A minister of state that has been at the centre of so much carnage. Years ago, you'd have hidden your face. As I said in the piece today, you'd have hidden your face. You'd have had some degree of sobriety around this. Now,
you've all done charity work. You've tried to rehabilitate yourself by doing good, but rehabilitating yourself by publishing a book ghostwritten by Isabel Oakeshott and going into the I'm a Celebrity Jungle.
Well, you know what it's like, Susie? It's a little bit like, I don't know if you ever saw The Office, where David Brent tells everybody that they're going to be sacked. But he said, the good news is I've been promoted. It's that kind of, and I don't say that, with a degree of levity. I say it because it symptomizes Matt Hancock's lack of self-awareness. Even if ITV had made the judgment or misjudgment of inviting him in, surely he could have had the self-awareness to say, thank you very much, but no thank you. I don't think it would be appropriate. But instead, he doesn't just take it, he grasps at it, because that's what he symptomizes, the grasping opportunist politician that we have in Westminster right now, as opposed to the ministers of state of the past, whether you agreed with their politics or not, who at least had some degree of honour and accountability.
I don't think we've really been able to dent their self-confidence is the issue. Now, Leslie says this is going to backfire on them big time. It's just more laughing at us while we are being hit by the cost of living crisis. Now, there's one part in your piece on pages 6 and 7 down that jumped out at me. You say that the statesmen of the past remain in our rearview mirror, replaced by a 21st century clown car crammed with thugs, narcissists and more sex pests than a 1970s office Christmas party. But it's a clown car that's killed thousands of people, but the clowns don't seem to have noticed. They don't seem to have lost that sense of self-regard. I think that's the fundamental problem, isn't it? That's got him in there. His ego is just as good as it ever was.
Well, absolutely. And again, this is a week where you've had Suella Braverman talking with impunity about migrants after a firebombing at that migrant centre in Dover, and using the kind of 70s rhetoric, invasion, threats, that kind of. This is a government. Well, absolutely. It's a government without empathy, a government that doesn't care. Ministers, past and present, who couldn't care less about you or I, noses in the trough while people are suffering from the cost of living crisis and using food banks. This is what Matt Hancock represents. And when I talk about the number of people who have been PM and Home Secretary and Chancellor, I do it because they don't see it as an opportunity to serve the public. They see it as an opportunity to serve themselves. as a ticket to celebrity in the big time. And we see how this is panning out. You know, he has already done another reality TV show that's going to come out later this year. As you say, he's going to be making money from that book. And all the while, people are suffering. The ones that have been bereaved, the ones that are paying through the nose, the ones whose lives have been changed irreparably. I just can't see any level on which this could be entertainment. And people might say, oh, well, I can't wait to see how he's going to react to the likes of Boy George and Charlene White and other people. That's as may be. But again, I still don't see that as entertainment. It's car crash TV. And it may well generate ratings, but I think the morality of it doesn't sit well with me. And I would imagine it doesn't sit well with a lot of people.
Yeah, and as Rosemary says there, well said, Darren. Now, keep asking us your questions. Let us know what you think about Matt Hancock going into the jungle. Should he be there? Should they have chosen someone else? What's his problem? Why on earth is he putting himself through it? Have you lost someone to COVID? Are you concerned about it? Are you quite happy that he's going in? Are you looking forward to dialing up and giving ITV lots of your money every night when you don't have any in order to see him, you know, locked in a box with some locusts or whatever? Let us know. That there is a bunch of other stuff of more importance in the news today, not least the fact that key workers' children are more likely to be living in poverty. That's a story in the Mirror today. And Rishi Sunak has rowed back on threats to fire 91,000 civil servants, as suggested. I think it was Boris Johnson, or Jacob Rees-Mogg, one of these interchangeable lunatics. Ricky says, should PJ and Duncan be held accountable? Yes, they should, for everything. There we go. I think we fixed it.